Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that focus on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild families, communities, and relationships. Our YouTube platform provides us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to families, communities, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures in order for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, that also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, in order for our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly interested in the topic, on top of the videos, we do write thought pieces every other Sunday, so please be sure to check that out on our webpage once you're done this video. Now, as is the YouTube convention, please do subscribe. Hit that post notification bell so that you're aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like the conversation and you want to keep it going, please do like, comment, and share this video. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back. Another week together, and we're growing, and I'm super psyched to see that we have returning viewers. For those of you who aren't familiar with this channel, welcome. Please make sure you subscribe. We cover topics that relate to education, mental health, and mental wellness, and we cover these topics on a week-by-week basis. And this week we're covering mental health. And I'm really happy to be having this conversation with everyone this week. And what I've decided to do is cover 5 things that we didn't know were hurting our mental health. I think that we love to find different ways to help increase our mental health without realizing that sometimes when we take on new habits and new rituals that help sort of enhance our quality of life, it's half of the game. The other half is getting rid of habits and getting rid of tendencies that tend to, chip away at our mental health. And it's not enough to just add to our toolkit. Some tools are rendered obsolete and we need to let them go. So that's what this video is about. It's about 5 things that we didn't know were hurting our mental health, different behaviors, habits, and tendencies, thinking patterns that serve to our detriment. I thought really hard about what the 5 core things that are fairly prevalent in my social circles anyway, and you let me know if these are prevalent in yours or even for you. And I'd love to hear your comments and get your feedback, and if there are other factors that you feel really do chip away at our mental health, maybe I'll make a part 2 if you send me some suggestions, either in the comments or be sure to send me an email. Let's start with the first one, and these aren't in any particular order. But the first habit that we tend to get into that hurts as opposed to helps our mental health is really about establishing self-imposed boundaries. So not boundaries on other people, but sort of boundaries on your own thinking patterns. And this one is knowing when why doesn't matter. So a lot of the times when things take place in our life that catch us off guard or that hurt us, we're caught up on why. And why is a question, it's like, it's the question that all of us serve to seek a response to, whether, philosophically or within a specific context within our life. But there are situations where if the consequences are bad enough, the why really doesn't matter. I mean, will it change the outcome? Will it change the pain? Will it change some of the ways that the relationship has been damaged as a result of those actions? And if the answer is no, you really need to think about creating self-imposed boundaries on when asking why is the appropriate response, but also when deciding that the why really isn't something that needs to inform your decision making moving forward. Sometimes the consequences and the effects of other people's behaviors are enough. And you know, realizing, and it took me a while because I'm someone who definitely intellectualizes everything. Like I overthink everything, and I've learned with time that there are things that don't require that level of depth by way of investigation. There are certain, you know, things that people do, why they do it, you know, it's a mystery to me, and it will remain a mystery because I've resolved to not care as to the why. The effects, the consequences are enough. And this is a self-imposed boundary that's taken me probably the large majority of my life to create, but I realized that there are certain experiences, the outcomes serve as the lesson, right? And it's the outcomes that teach us a little bit more about life and about the people that we're going to meet and the way that those people stand to impact us. If we don't create boundaries earlier on, or if we don't listen to red flags, or if we don't listen to our intuition as it relates to certain people that we allow in our inner circles. Maybe that is suffice as it relates to the why. But in terms of seeking out the answers from those who may have caused us pain or who have, you know, breached a boundary in some way, shape, or form, finding out why doesn't always matter. So I think thinking to yourself, or even, you know, creating some time to reflect on when the why doesn't matter for you, and then making sure that you commit to yourself that when these situations take place, and it is when, because it happens to all of us, none of us are exempt, that we don't beat ourselves up with trying to figure out why it took place. The fact that it took place is enough for you to act, for you to establish boundaries and, you know, make the required pivots moving forward. So that's the first one that I wanted to cover today, self-imposed boundaries, knowing when why doesn't matter. Second tip that I wanted to cover in terms of habits that we didn't know were chipping away at our mental health was making a pivot in what we spend our time ruminating on. And this pivot involves, if you're going to sit and dwell on something, dwell on the good and not the bad. And a lot of the research supports that, you know, it takes 7 good things to sort of nullify one bad event that takes place in our life. And this typically is true. The negative experiences, the negative things in our life, for whatever reason, seem to outweigh the positive. And it's interesting because even when you look at the digital space, there's so much positivity that goes on in these shared spaces, but a lot of the times we fixate on that one negative comment that really, you know, really grinded our gears. And so this is sort of a call to action to make a pivot. You know, there are going to be people who sort of need to put negativity out into, you know, the world around them, and that has very little to do with you. And it might seem personal because the things that they're saying are personal, but anyone who feels inclined to be negative and to be critical without it being constructive or helpful towards you, that is more about them than it is about you, and it shouldn't take up any mental energy beyond even like recognizing that that exists. And so this is really the whole practice of sitting and dwelling on the negative things and letting the positive things, sort of allowing the positive things in our life to be minimized and to be diminished by, you know, the one negative thing. And I think this is a habit that impacts some of us more than others. Some of us are, you know, really quite the ruminators. And so I guess it's, if you're going to spend time thinking about a negative thing, or if that negative thing pops up, then at least commit to yourself, well, if I'm going to spend any time thinking about this negative thing, I need to give myself at least the same amount of time thinking about something or multiple things that are equally positive, so that I always have a balanced perspective about life. Because I think the only reason why we come to the conclusion very readily that, this world is a horrible, dark place and everyone's terrible. It's because of the things we choose to fixate our attention on. And if we sort of broaden our perspective, we'll realize that there's so much good in the world, and there's just as much positive things that take place in our lives as there are negative, if not more. It's just we take a lot of the positive things for granted. I think that taking the positive things in our life for granted, assuming that those positive things are going to be there, not giving those positive things like a moment of reflection, of recognition, or feeling grateful for the effects that those positive things have had on you and in your life, really stands to hurt our mental health in the long run. So that's number 2, definitely. Spending more time reflecting on the good, dwelling on the good in our life, and allowing that to make us feel good inside and, fill us up with positivity, and leaving the negative with the negative Nancy's, like, let's not dwell on the negative. Let's focus on the things that uplift us and that keep us aligned and balanced in the way that we see events, things, and people in our world and in our life. In summary, valuing the good and denouncing the bad is, not putting so much attention dwelling on the negative things in our life, and instead like catching ourselves whenever it is the case that we're dwelling on something that's negative, and making a point to pivot to the positive and giving the positive things in our life the attention that we typically would sort of, allow the negative things to kind of cannibalize on. I think if we're going to put our attention in any basket, it should be on the things that we know make us feel good and help us do good. So this brings us to the 3rd thing on our list. And I find these things kind of go together by way of number 2, valuing the good and denouncing the bad. So the 3rd thing is about the coulda, woulda, shouldas. And, all of us do this. We sometimes ruminate on our mistakes, and we allow ourselves to get stuck in the past with these coulda, woulda, shouldas. And let me tell you something, the coulda, woulda, shouldas are not anyone's friends. No one feels good thinking about what they coulda, shoulda, or would have done had things been different. And I'm gonna level set with you here. Your coulda, woulda, shouldas are informed by the outcome, by the effects. You wouldn't have known that wasn't a direction you would have taken had you not taken that step, right? So the coulda, woulda, shouldas are a byproduct of learning, and that learning is a byproduct of the experience of things not going the way that you had intended, and dwelling on how you should have done it a different way when you didn't have all that information to make the decision to go a different route. It puts us in a spiral that is never ending, and it allows us to sit in regret. And I think regret is one of the most wasteful emotions in life. I am not a fan of regret. I very rarely will feel it because I think regret is a waste of time. Coulda, woulda, shouldas are something that we can easily flip to, okay, now that I have this information, can I resolve it? Is there a way that I can do something in this present moment that might minimize the collateral damage? If yes, do that action. If not, okay, well now I know for next time, and we move on. Why? Because we cannot go back into the past. There is no point in allowing the coulda, woulda, shouldas take up so much mental energy, because we cannot go back in the past. And yes, of course, if we had the opportunity to do it differently, we would. And if we have the opportunity to do it differently, definitely you should. But if you cannot, if it's in the past, the outcomes are sort of laid out in stone and there's nothing to do but go forward, then my suggestion is to go forward and abandon the coulda, woulda, shouldas. These narratives have never helped anyone feel good about themselves. So instead, definitely 1, seek to resolve it where you can, and then 2, learn from it. Know that if ever it was the case that this opportunity comes by again, or you have another chance, however that might translate, you'll do it differently, and make that commitment to yourself. But dwelling in the past, beating yourself up over the way that you did choose to handle it is not something that is beneficial to you or to your mental health. And it's definitely not going to change what took place. So being at peace with how things evolved, recognizing that even if you can't see the bigger picture, everything happens for a reason. The things that work out happen for a reason, and the things that don't work out also happen for a reason. And your knowledge of that is growth. Knowing that now you would do things differently, it's growth. So give yourself kudos for the growth and abandon regret. Like, let's leave the coulda, woulda, shouldas outside. They're not our friends. And it's time to kind of nix that habit in the bud. All right. So with that said, this brings us to number 4 on the list. And number 4 on the list is seeking validation from those withholding. And this is a habit that I feel like this is a tricky one, because all of us are attention seeking to some extent, right? We all want to feel accepted. We all want the attention of those that we care about and that we would want to give attention to. But here's the thing, self-love, like valuing yourself, is where it all begins, right? And the whole idea that you develop a sense of self-worth based on other people's perceptions of you is completely false. You develop your sense of self-worth by aligning yourself to people who treat you the way that you know you should be treated, and you know how you should be treated. Whether or not you're allowing people to treat you differently is for you to kind of think and reflect on your own. But you give people way too much power over your sense of self-perception when you seek validation from those who withhold it. And another way of putting that is when you're seeking to get acceptance from people who just don't feel inclined to accept you, and who like the fact that you're jumping through hoops and you're doing all these tricks to get their approval. And seeking approval from other people is a great way to even erode your sense of self-worth and your sense of value, which is not based on how other people see you. It's based really on who you know yourself to be and the value that you bring into the room, whether people see that value or not. So this whole practice of seeking validation from people who are intentionally withholding it from you, I say let's stop that in 2021. If there are people who, for whatever reason, choose not to see your value, that is their loss. It is not your loss. And it might feel like your loss because you think those people are really cool, but how cool are they if they don't see how cool you are, right? Or how great of a person are they if they make you feel bad for trying to build a bridge and create friendship and solidarity with them? Sometimes we need to really push ourselves to rethink the way that we view people based on the way that those people treat us. And sometimes, person A, I don't know, I don't want to use a name because I don't want anyone to think that, I'm covertly poking at anyone, but we'll call this person A, might be a really cool person. Maybe a lot of people have really great things to say about person A. But if person A, for whatever reason, decides that you're not person A's cup of tea, then it's their loss, right? And it might feel crappy because you're like, well, person A likes everyone. Person A is really popular. Everyone seems to like person A, and person A seems to be very, cordial and nice with everyone else. Like, what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you. But if person A has decided you're not their cup of tea, then the best decision there is to reflect that choice back at person A and decide, well, hey, I thought we could be cool, but if I'm not your cup of tea, clearly there's information that I don't have that should translate as you not being my cup of tea either. So definitely take on sort of a critical thinking hat with the friendships that you are seeking to create, with the relationships that you're pursuing, and think to yourself, am I seeking validation from those withholding? And if you are, let's put a stop to that. You will be immediately validated by those who see your value, and it will be a reciprocal exchange, right? Healthy relationships are about reciprocity, and it's about seeing and receiving the value in one another. And if you're in a space where you feel like your value is constantly overlooked, then that means, that's information in and of itself. That's a signal that you need to find yourself, you need to find yourself a space where people just see you and they see the value in you, and recognize that if someone doesn't see your value, that's their own blind spot. It doesn't mean that you're not valuable. You're definitely very valuable. You just need to find the people who see that without you having to jump through hoops or sort of compromise your own values and your own sense of self-worth in order to be seen. That is not something we're going to do. Okay, so the very last, but definitely not the least tip on, the 5 habits that hurt our mental health is allowing your present circumstance to define your value. And this is a really important one because a lot of the times we experience high highs and low lows because we allow our situation to inform how we see ourselves and inform our sense of self-esteem and inform our sense of self-worth. And this is a guaranteed emotional roller coaster because life in itself guarantees highs and lows. It guarantees ups and downs, successes and failures. Your value has absolutely nothing to do with your circumstance, and your circumstance has everything to do with your growth, with your development, with your pursuit of greatness, your pursuit of goals that are forcing you outside of your comfort zone. And the more you step outside of your comfort zone, the more you're going to find yourself in circumstances that are not necessarily a reflection of your value. So it's very important that you recognize that the strongest foundation from which to establish your value are internal things, the things that make up your humanity, the things that make up who you are as a human being, and not what not like what you've collected or what you've accomplished. I mean, these things you should be proud of, but they have absolutely nothing to do with your value. So regardless of where you are sort of on your roadmap or how close you are to the achievements and the accomplishments that you have in mind, or to the vision or the dreams that you want to manifest in your life, recognizing that even in achieving those dreams, I mean, it's great and you should be very proud, but it has nothing to do with your value. Your value is constant and it's a steady state, regardless of whether you're thriving in life or struggling. Regardless of whether you're on the highest high or whether you're in the lowest low. Life guarantees all of these states again, and circumstance has absolutely nothing to do with value. And for those of you who recognize that your circumstance might communicate your change in value to those around you, that's more of a signal about the friends that you keep, right? Like if your friends are only your friends when you're up, then maybe rethink the word. Maybe they're not friends and they're more so opportunists. Less about your value, more about your value to them. So that is a very important one, because a lot of the times you're already sort of dealing with a really difficult situation, and on top of that you're heaping coals in your own head because you're allowing yourself to feel insecure and to feel as though you don't have much value to bring to the table because you're going through a really hard time. And the hard time is hard enough without you also sort of picking apart at your own sense of value. So know your worth, your value is not determined by your circumstance, right? You are high worth, high value, high everything all the time. I've said it, I haven't met you, but I know it to be true 100%. And your circumstances are a reflection of your growth, of your journey, of your development. And I'm so excited to hear from you, what it looks like on the other side. Because whatever it is you're going through, if you're kind of going through a rough patch right now, you're gonna get through it. And when you're in a great place, and you will be, just remember those moments and allow them to kind of keep you humble, because all of us have highs and lows. And for those of you who have yet to experience a low, get ready. Like, they happen to the best of us. And again, this is about reaching beyond our comfort zone and allowing life to happen with us, and allowing us, us to adapt and to be flexible and to grow and to reach new heights. All of this takes a certain amount of stress and struggle, and those are great things. It means you're living your best life. And I'm a true advocate for that. I'm like very much a YOLO person. You only live one life. And if you're gonna live one life, recognize that to live it to the fullest, it means to allow yourself to sort of maybe be exposed to circumstances that are less than comfortable, and seeing the growth that takes place there. So there you have it. Those are my 5 tips on, different habits that hurt our mental health. And I hope that they resonate with you. If there are any of these habits that you yourself engage in, I really do challenge you to make the shift. Like, let's do away with these habits. Let's find strategies that help ensure that, we're preserving our sense of self, that we're not allowing other people access to inform parts of ourselves that are not for them to sort of speak to, right? Because who we are, our value, our worth is not something that is externally determined. So I really hope that you like this video. It's not super long, but very practical. I'd love to hear from you. Again, please do engage with this video, leave a like, comment, share this video, and if you made it to the end, definitely subscribe. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time.
Like no one's listening. Some days I just feel like the world's into me.